So this video had just dropped, and I thought, hey, this is a great chance to make something amazing. I looked around for references and came across this artist called Afukuro. He draws amazing anime cyborg girls based on motorbikes. And I'm definitely gonna make something out of this. I planned to start a week later, but ended up getting really sick. But this won't stop me. I gathered references and planned out the entire animation in my downtime. This is the storyboard I put together. I imagined cyborg enemies shooting at the car and the driver trying to escape them. The hero would be cannonballed in from an incredible distance and hack through all the enemies. But that jump had damaged her legs, so she takes the support of the car and escapes. Next, it's time to get in the blender. I added cylinders to the endless engine template to get a basic idea of where everything is positioned, and brought in the model of an old RX-7 I had. The rig was made from Maya and it didn't work in Blender, so I put together something basic, some wheels and something to steer the car with. I downloaded the model of Rain from Blender's official website and gave her a gun I found on Sketchfile. We're ready to animate. Now, I've never animated in Blender before, so I watched CG Geek's tutorial on it for 3 minutes until he said use the I key to insert keyframes. And then I skipped the whole 20 minutes. I got the car animation reasonably ready with the entry and drifts. About 8 characters needed individual animations. I began on the first Sam model, the one that goes over the hood, and tried for several hours with horrifying results. I imagined 7 more of this paint and had enough. It's got me overwhelmed and burned out. I just couldn't do it anymore and I quit. Several days went by as I kept making up excuses of why giving up was such a great choice. I can always try again next time. But I just couldn't accept that. I must finish what I started. This is not who I want to be. I must overcome all challenges and become a man I can respect. Man who knows no fear and will stop at nothing to get what he desires. Anyways, see, the problem was I thought the project was simple. Just move the characters around and make some cool poses. How hard could that be? But as I kept working on it, I realized I just don't have the skills for it yet. So new plan. Get an idea that's actually doable. Something in an anime style from Dragon Ball. Like Goku on a Nimbus with Bulma chasing him in a flying saucer. No, that's getting a little too complicated. What about just a Ghibli styled guy riding a bike? Seems a little too simple. The project must push my limits but not break me down. Like working out at the gym. High work effort within safe margins. I remember seeing an interesting thumbnail on a YouTube video some time ago, and I looked for it. I found it saved in my video collection. It was White Bird by Yishu 5. This is perfect. I drew various concept sketches on paper. I had this idea for the plane having arms to toss fishes to the birds, but the design looked too bulky, so I decided on a surfer who would toss the fish instead. It's hard to visualize 3D shapes on flat paper, so I tried Gravity Sketch on my Quest 2 to finalize the glider shapes. Now that we have blocked out the new concept, I brought it into Blender and replaced the temporary vehicle in the template. Then I remade the ground to look like an ocean, just some displacement and an ocean-like textured material. I made this rig character in Blender a long time ago. It seems like it'll come in use now. I turned the hair to mesh because my computer would explode otherwise, and changed the cold suit to a wet suit. Finally, I downloaded a seagull asset by Julian Johnson Mortimer and hooked it up to a rig. Weight painting took quite some time. I found that you can go to edit, uncheck the lock object mode so you can select the bones in pose mode as well as the bird in weight paint mode at the same time. Like this, you can click on the bones to select the vertex groups instead of manually scrolling through the list. Once that was done, I put all the characters in one place. Now that we have the base actors, we can start animating them. Position the character in relation to the glider. Pose him like he's surfing and holding a cable handle from the glider. Add the shrink wrap constraint to the feet, hips and hand bones. This will make it look like he's reacting to the water waves. expose him catching a placeholder fish, then animate to make him check it out and toss it to the birds. Now there are 3 birds, this one chilling on the wings, and these 2 fighting for the fish. The second bird kicks the third to steal the fish, but it slips. Looks like the first one's been waiting for this all along. The wings flutter with the wind because I added a noise modifier on every bone of the bird. This time the animation was much easier because I took it in smaller steps, going from the large position changes to the finer reactions. Now that that's done, I set up the scene with some cool looking shaders and made a mid-progress video to show you guys. Next, I have to model a glider. Just pull a box over the blockout and subdivide it. The nose shading sucks. Make a separate piece from a new plane and pull it out by proportional editing. Shrink wrap the nose bit onto the new mesh for some nice smooth shading. Boolean slice the cockpit. Make the exhaust vents by placing a squashed cylinder and carve out vents for the intakes and the outlets. Steal the wings from the blockout and solidify it. Make it aerodynamic. Carve in an indent on the body to fit the wings. Slice it so it can fold. I tried some hinge folder designs, but it didn't work out. Slice up the glider for that pattern look. Apply the booleans and clean up topology. Apply the bevel modifier on sharp edges for every piece. Add basic black and white materials everywhere. Get a brushed metal look by adding a bump map and a stretched noise texture. Add some wet and dry spots with a musgrave texture. And add some rust all over the glider with Voronoi. Ambient occlusion didn't work out quite as expected in EV. Something about the pieces being too close perhaps. Budget workaround I found was to add black material to bevels. Add text for cool details. Pick any font and color you like. Or add them as decals. Lots of decals. Screw decals just everywhere. Pair them correctly now and replace the glider into the main scene. I didn't have a concept for the background scene, so I tried stuff till I was happy. I thought of an inner city where the architecture was on the surface of an ocean world. So I put down a long strip of road and sci-fi building assets, chopped up and spaced apart to give it a more thought out look. This was interesting, but I wanted the openness of the original concept art. So I scrapped the city. I filled the background sky with large placeholder planets. Then I placed some cubes and converted them to mountain cliffs. Create planes as waterfall and materials made by stretching out musgrave and gradient textures for the water and the foam. Make a bush. Mine was by a musgrave texture. Procedure. Add to the top of the mountains by hair particles. I found the ocean modifier and used it for the big ocean, but it didn't quite work out for the small ones because it needed too much subdivisions for the foams and spray. So I made it by material instead. Make a noise as a bump map and separate the z-axis to get the foam peaks. I created a fog-like volumetric but didn't end up using it. Initially I wanted to simulate all the water and splashes, but the models were moving too fast and there were not enough subframes, and the processing node was no longer real time. So I skipped it and added it in post. Finally, I downloaded a flying fish, but it was not a compatible format. So I used the texture and modeled my own. I replaced the placeholder fish with the new model, but it wasn't very visible. So I tossed a few in front of the camera. For the background ones, I created a looping fish jump and added a particle system to eject them out randomly from underwater. I rendered multiple layers of the project with separate objects on transparent backgrounds. Use the near and far clipping planes on the camera setting to split up objects by distance. I also used alpha holdouts to maintain cutouts and overlaps when objects get in the way and silhouettes needed to be masked. Arrange the layers into After Effects and tweak the colors of layers to taste. In a pre-comp for the mountains, create a couple layers for turbulent noise which are masked by gradient layers. This acts as the fog and mist. And on the noise layer in front of the waterfall, tracking the base position can act as a splash and spray of the waterfall. I noticed a couple frames of the main ocean rising up the camera. This was by accident, but I decided to play it up and blend in some splashes, bubbles and droplets on the sea to look like the camera was sprayed. In places where the fishes jump out and dive into, I added some water drop ripples to look like the fishes actually touch the water and didn't spawn in the air. I masked in a turbulent wave video behind the surfboard to give a sense of water displacement. This was the thing I couldn't do with dynamic paint in Blender. I added another set of noise textures to either side of the board to create some water sprays. For the background, I went with images of planets instead of 3D renders because I was too lazy to texture the spheres. I added some noise and displacement on top for a sense of atmosphere. Mix in a cloud image for the sky and give it a little position and scale change to look like it's moving. In a new composition, zoom in the whole scene a bit and add a wiggle for the camera shake. Control its intensity in points of interest to make it react to the scene. Add a fine adjustment layer to manage the global levels and colors. Just as I was nearly done, I felt the mountains looked empty, so I gathered some building assets on top of them and blended it into the scene. Much better. And that's it. The project was ready for submission and I was done. One thing I had forgotten to add were wind trails of the tips of the wings. I realized it too late after the submission was already made. But that's okay. I gathered some sound clips of squalling seagulls, crashing and rumbling of the ocean, and a whine for the glider engine, and mixed them together in the breakdown video for immersion. And we finally end up with this. That's all we have for this project. I skipped over the granular details like which shade of green should grass be, or else the video would be 10 hours long. So if you've got any questions or cool tips and insights, let me know down in the comments. I also have a video series in works about the full process of modeling a hard surface robot, from blockout to animation, that would be really insightful for beginners and intermediate 3D artists. So I hope you'll come by to say hello when it drops. Thanks for watching.